So one of the really cool things about Obsession is it's the first time in a while we've had one of these cultural phenomenon type movies that's both really well executed and ambiguous enough to spark some pretty interesting conversation. It's this kind of Rorschach test where people's reactions to it say as much about them as they do about the movie itself. So this weekend I went on Twitter, or X, the everything app, to see what people were saying, and it's pretty interesting. So, like, one of the first things I found is that there's this vigorous debate about whether or not Nikki has been taken over by something. There's stuff like this. Nikki wasn't trapped by a spell. The movie explicitly shows that the Willow just unmasked her true internal desires. Bear didn't force anything on her. He just gave her the permission to stop pretending to be the good girl. If you think she's a helpless victim here, you completely miss the entire psychological point of the third act. I mean, I guess I did miss the entire psychological point of the third act because this take to me is crazy. The movie's not ambiguous about this at all. There's the scene early on in the bedroom where she sort of snaps out of it for a second and says, "What the fuck is going on?" Then there's the thing at the party, of course, where she's screaming, "It's not me, it's not me." She's stabbing herself in the eye. And then Bear calls customer service and they say, "Would you like to talk to her?" And he's connected to what seems to be her disembodied soul screaming in whatever void it's in. And then, of course, there's the scene at the end, or near the end, where she's in bed and says she's sleeping now. "Please kill me." So I don't really see how you could argue it's not that. People are arguing it, and it gets a little bit of traction. So, like, here's this guy. "I might have to agree with what you said. It low-key makes sense." What is with low-key? It's just the weirdest piece of slang that people have come up with. I don't get it at all. Anyway, exactly. The horror is that Nikki wasn't possessed or controlled. She was confronted with who she really was once the need to pretend disappeared. The third act is about revelation, not victimhood. So if you buy into this, then you have watched a very different movie than the rest of us. And you can see it in the way they talk about the conclusion to it. Nikki is just as much of a villain. When she claims the final one-wish Willow, she bypasses healing, peace, or closure. Instead, she stoops to Bear's level. She strips away another person's free will, forcing a manufactured love upon him. That's what makes the ending so tragic. Bear started the cycle, but Nikki's final wish crossed the same line by taking away someone else's agency. In trying to keep him forever, she became a reflection of the obsession she hated. So, like, that's a pretty extreme interpretation, but it does dovetail with some of the other things that people seem to be unclear about. So, like, there's a lot of talk about the first 20 minutes or so of the movie and the character of Nikki, when she is Nikki, and her relationship with Bear. And people sort of hone in on the scene in the bar where she's teasing him about ordering a pina colada, and then, of course, the scene in the car where she asks if he likes her. So there's a lot of stuff like this. If Bear had said yes here, what would have been Nikki's response? And does this mean she actually liked him, but she wanted him to make the first move? So, like, this is where I'm sure I'm bringing my own experiences in how I'm interpreting what's happening in the movie. But to me, there was nothing ambiguous about whether or not she liked Bear in that way. Like, having been that guy in my 20s who just always had these crushes or obsessions with these girls who were my friends but did not see me that way, it's very clear that that's how she sees him, as a friend. And that what she tells Sarah, and he finds out later in the movie, that she thinks of him as a little brother, is exactly how she feels. But people don't seem to get that from it. So there's a lot of argument about this. So here, personally, I don't think she liked him, but if he had shown a spine and admitted his feelings at this moment, she might have at least given him a chance, maybe a date or two. I don't think she actually liked him if you ask me. So why did she ask? And then this woman jumps in and says, "Going to be so honest, y'all, this is just how a girl talks to someone she knows is in love with her who she isn't interested in." And, like, to me, that's right. Like, that's what's going on here. Like, I've been on the other side of this when I was in my 20s, and that's exactly what that scene feels like. But people are not having it. No, why would someone play with their feelings if they know they like her? I would feel uncomfortable if I know someone I don't like likes me. But the thing is, like, Nikki does feel uncomfortable because she knows, but she is also his friend. And this is part of the thematic thing about Bear and the way he ends up being the bad guy, even though he's not necessarily a bad person in some sort of existential sense. So he's got this crush on her, and he's living in this kind of fantasy world, right? And in this fantasy world, he thinks what he wants to do is express his feelings to her. But he doesn't do it. What he does instead is he just acts kind of weird. He says, I've got a gift for you. Oh, I have to tell you something. And she does pick up on this. And that's what that scene is about, where she says, do you like me? This is the moment to say it. Because it's basically her finally going, okay, if that's what the situation is, say it and we can talk about it. And not talk about it in the sense of like, maybe I'll date you, but like she's trying to puncture that world he's in and actually get her friend back. But he's too chicken shit to do it. And that's what sets the whole story down the path it ends up going down. And because of the nature of the story, a lot of the opinions on this end up really being a battle of the sexes thing, with men and women attributing the most uncharitable possible motives to each other. So like, this response here, it's so fucking hilarious seeing women go back and forth on whether or not Nikki was flirting or liked Bear. How the fuck are men in real life supposed to know if a woman is flirting or likes them? Even women have zero clue. And then like this guy, to him, men are seeing, what if your girlfriend was insane? And women are seeing, what if you were forced to be kind to a man you didn't like? Which is like totally unfair. She's perfectly kind to him. She just doesn't want that kind of relationship with him. And I don't mean to get all feministy about it, but that really is pretty much objectifying her, like just reducing her down to the sexual or romantic function, as if the friendship doesn't mean anything. But the thing is, like, the women are just as bad about this. So here's one. Fuck Bear forever. Her screaming, "It's not me," is so heartbreaking, and his bitch ass is just sad he didn't have a good time with his hot girlfriend he never earned. Awful, awful person. Okay, so she's talking about the party scene, and I don't see how you watch that scene and think that what he's feeling right there is, I'm mad because or sad because I'm not having a good time with my hot girlfriend. And also, what's with this that he hasn't earned? Like, that's a little objecty too, like as if she's some sort of prize or something. And then another, Nikki was a writer, Sarah was an artist, and Bear, the AI user, stripped their lives and creativity away. So this like AI thing totally threw me for a loop. I didn't even think he used AI in the movie, but I guess he did, because like there's this tweet here. Bear only used AI once to look something up. So this kind of reminds me of back, like there was a period of like maybe 10 years or so when smoking had become really verboten and the only people who smoked in movies were villains. Like that was part of how you knew they were bad. And I kind of love the idea that AI is going to be the new version of this. So like in a movie, you'll see like some guy sits down and starts using ChatGPT and you're like, watch out for that guy. He's bad. Like, I'm in favor of this. I think it's great. So here's another. I really fucking felt for Nikki in this scene. Her whole life was fucking ruined because an insecure man couldn't be a man and admit his feelings for his crush. So instead of taking no for an answer, he took away her autonomy and forced her to continuously suffer. So this is a whole other thing, where people seem to think that the characters in the movie should know that they're in a horror movie and should expect supernatural things to happen. Because this tweet only makes sense if when Bear snaps the One Wish Willow, he knows that the wish is going to come true. But of course, like, why would he think that? Like, the movie's set in the real world. The One Wish Willow is just this consumer product that he finds at a store. It's, got industrial wrapping and a customer service number on it. So of course it's not going to come true. But there's just take after take like this. So here's another one. There's a scene where Nikki asks, looking into his eyes, if he likes her. She opens the door. She gives him a chance to be vulnerable. And he chooses not to come in. He prefers an object that might make her like him over risking hearing a no. And like even people who are on his side think this. Everyone out here dragging Bear in obsession for breaking the One Wish Willow like he's some kind of monster. Come on, bro, let's keep it real. If you were down that bad, crushing hard on someone who barely notices you, and this thing promises to fix it with one snap, most of us would do the exact same shit without thinking twice. And another one. Bear made the wish to change that reality instead of confessing. I don't think Bear did the wish out of malice. Bear was just too scared to confess, and also I think Bear just ignored Nikki's lack of interest because he was obsessed with her. I mean, that last part is definitely true. And this sort of thing colors people's reactions to all the other scenes in the movies too. Like, there's a lot of stuff about the scene in the party, and this is pretty typical. Now, I'm sorry, Sarah and Ian suck, because what do you mean they both just never tried to help Nikki after this? If this was my friend, I would be insanely concerned and doing everything to help them. And like, I do get what people are saying there, but think about what that scene looks like from the perspective of people who haven't seen all of the other scenes that we've seen going on at Bear's house. Basically, Nikki has just basically dropped off the face of the earth, right? And she's hooked up with this guy who she always said she wasn't interested in. And she seems to have just stopped talking to everybody. And then when she shows up again, she's weirdly hostile and kind of getting up in Sarah's face. Then she freaks out, starts screaming, stabs herself in the face with a bottle, and then says, haha, no, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. So like, what are they thinking at that moment? I mean, they're not thinking, oh, her mind was probably taken over or she's been possessed by a demon. Like, what they're probably thinking is she's on drugs. I mean, this has happened earlier in the movie, right? At the beginning of the whole thing, that's the sort of the cover story, is that she was on Molly. And if you've ever known anybody who's been like really deep into drugs and acting erratically like that and acting hostilely like that, like, yeah, they're your friend, you're gonna try and help them, but after a point, you're just gonna keep your distance from them. So I don't think it's really as strange as people make it out to be, because none of these people living in the real world are going to think that it's demonic possession. I mean, I say nobody, but there is this guy. Friends who practice rituals, magic, and the like, a question. Does a love binding spell violate rights like consent? I know it sounds silly, but it's a genuine question. And the answer, by the way, is it's basically fine. But the character who really gets the brunt of people expecting everyone to know that they're in a horror movie is Sarah. Like, so here's a response to that tweet about the party. Sarah deadass went to fuck her man after this episode. And again, deadass. It's such a weird piece of slang. But like, you get a lot of this. Sarah is not a victim of Bear. She's a victim of her own stupidity and moral failings as a friend/person. You watch this girl have a mental breakdown at a party and smash her face with a glass bottle, and your next move is to text her man to meet you in her car at 3 a.m. and try to kiss him. She's a fucking bitch. Literally, she was in love with Bear, and that's exactly why she never questioned that Nikki, her best friend. I don't think the movie in any way establishes that Sarah and Nikki are best friends. In fact, you know, Nikki does say early on to Bear that he's the only one she can really relate to or talk to or something like that. I don't know. So, never questioned that Nikki might be a victim of something. Plus, when she talks to Bear, she wants to blame her for his actions, all to stay on good terms with the guy. Just another slut. And then this guy. Let's talk about Sarah for a second. Bear was obviously the worst person in the film, but Sarah wasn't a girl's girl either. She knew Bear was in a relationship and she still flirted with him. Instead of showing concern for Nikki's obvious mental decline, she suggested Nikki was taking advantage of Bear and continued making moves on him. Bear encouraged it too, so they both failed Nikki. That said, Sarah deserved what happened to her. She got her face bashed into a brick like 15 times and reduced to pulp. But she, low-key, deadass, was creeping on another woman's man. So that's just what you get. But all these kinds of takes just feed into the most insufferable sector of the commentariat, which is, of course, the critical theory political types, by which I mean people like this. I enjoyed Obsession, but I think it's one of those films that is very incomplete in its exploration of misogyny because of its premise. By having Bear and not Nikki as its perspective character, the film does end up stripping her of her humanity. Even the horror accidentally takes on a misogynistic turn. Everything from the cinematography to the plot beats is dependent on Nikki acting weird. The horrors derive from this instead of the loss of autonomy. It makes it feel like women be crazy, but guys, misogyny. So this thing, it's an incomplete examination of misogyny. It's not an examination of misogyny. It's a story. It's not a lecture. But this is what people who look at movies this way want every movie to be. So here's another one. It must feel so good to be a white man who makes a mediocre film that everyone perceives as the feminist movie of the century. So like what she's reacting to here is that interview with the director where he says Bear becomes the bad guy in this film. But he doesn't start off as a bad guy. And of course, that's not good enough. I think it's important to notice and analyze how misogyny bleeds through the cracks of movies, the fun ones included, because that's how you develop critical thinking and seek change. Also because I don't find misogyny particularly fun. And someone jumps in and says, no, he's the villain from the first minute of the film, even if Curry Barker doesn't think so. The film knows there's nothing innocent about his crush and the way he would rather fetishize her than tell her he likes her. And she says, I'm not denying that there is a story within the story, but that wasn't the one being framed and highlighted. So the argument here is that even though the story actually is about her losing her autonomy and about Bear being so self-absorbed that he doesn't even try and help her until the end, even though he says he's in love with her, that the mechanics of the story, the way it works for us and the audience, is that who we are afraid of is Nikki, or the entity that has taken over Nikki. And so the problem with that is it is not conveying through semiotics and images her victimhood. And the thing with people like this is, and they don't see it this way, but like what they really want is they want all entertainment to be propaganda. Like it's part of this whole way of looking at things that sees people as these sort of blank operating systems. And the only reason they don't share your political beliefs about things is because they haven't been fed the correct information. So it becomes very important that every piece of art, every piece of entertainment is conveying the right message so that they will understand the world the way you think they should understand it. And it's just, nothing works this way. That is not how art works. Art does not create culture. It reflects culture. And like, yeah, there's a lot of misogynistic reactions to this movie. And that's because there's a lot of misogynists. And so when they see the movie, they are going to view it through the lens of their misogyny. But the movie isn't creating the misogyny, and the movie can't stop the misogyny. And it's just this very impoverished way of looking at art that I find, I don't know, totally obnoxious. And then, of course, any movie that is this popular is going to start drawing the people out of the woodworks who say, no, actually it sucks. It's just all hype. And so the first guy I ran across like that was this. Technically, the film was good, including casting and acting for an indie, but plenty of bad films and TV shows on Netflix enjoy this. Writing was childish. Drugged college students wrote this with very narrow lived experience. Also why it succeeded with incels. So I thought, okay, this is a bold take. I wonder what this guy's deal is. So I looked into him a little bit further, and what this guy's deal is that he is a white supremacist. And I don't mean that in the way that that sort of thing gets thrown around a lot loosely these days. I mean, like, he's literally on about the Ubermensch and the Aryan race. And the only reason I even highlight this guy is because of this tweet here. Zoomers have taken personal offense to my panning of the garbage film obsession, even white nationalist ones. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, like, when even the normally discerning white nationalist audience can't recognize the obvious flaws of this film, really, what does this country come to? But there's tons of other people like this who are not white nationalists. Obsession was mid as fuck. Great concept, not executed well, and poorly directed. Be honest, is Obsession actually good, or did the internet gaslight everyone again? Thank you, just white mediocrity. Okay, we're gonna have to go to the tape for this one. Ethnicity. The film over-indexes with minority audiences. Post-track exit polls show the crowd was roughly 40% Caucasian, 32% Hispanic and Latino, 12% Black, 12% Asian American, 5% Native American or other. Interesting. And then there's this guy. The idea that the movie Obsession is Easy Rider for Zoomers and not just pretty standard Blumhouse-style movie made for people with TikTok addictions is a good example of how historical precedence has been obliterated by dwindling attention spans. And then someone comes in and says, is that how the kids are taking it? Are they calling it their Easy Rider? And he says, I don't really see it as a generational thing. Anecdotally, most of the kind of praise like that I've seen has come from older people trying to feel like they're discovering something. That's me. He's talking about me. But then he says, I think most young people are just happy to see a movie made for/by them, which is fair. Dude, that is the entire significance of Easy Rider. It's not remembered because it was such a amazingly made movie. It was a movie that was made for and by that late 60s boomer generation that was no longer connecting with the movies that Hollywood was making, which is exactly what that argument is about Obsession. And I'm the one who's got historical amnesia because of TikTok. Anyway, now this one I really do respect because it just gets right down to it. I feel superior to others for not having watched it, and I don't give a shit. Everyone glazing it really shows how bad movies have gotten. Before anyone says you can't judge something you haven't watched, Yes, I can, because every clip I've seen from it has been shite. I love this, I respect it, and I don't want you to ever change. Don't let anyone tell you what to like. So that's basically it. Now, there is one take that I came across that I found to be genuinely fascinating. And apparently it's been going around a lot, but this is the first time I'd seen it. So what it is this theory that the entity that's taken over Nikki is in fact Bear's dead cat, Sandy, and they've got evidence. Now explain this. She hides in corners and watches him in his sleep. She moves like she's stalking prey. She waits by the door for him all day. Okay, that's not a cat thing. That's a dog thing, but I'll let it go. Those glowing eyes in the silhouette scene, very cat-coded. And she literally brings him dead things, just like cats bringing presents to their favorite human. Man, I am sold. I don't even care if it's true. That is my, in my head, canonical explanation for this. I love it. So anyway, what do you think? You got takes, theories? Put them in the comments. Let's talk. Catch you soon.